Dear YouTubers, I'd like to welcome you back to the year 1996 and the game Birthright, the Gorgon's Alliance, which was developed by Synergistic Software and distributed by Sierra. I am Icehair, and while I would like to stress that I had nothing whatsoever to do with making the game or anything like that, I did play it obsessively, some might say. I made a few scenarios for it that I've posted on my homepage now, and recently, in one of my really fairly frequent fits of nostalgia, I was just browsing YouTube for the games that I played when I was young, or younger anyway, and I found some of the music and the opening cinematic from this game, if you can even call it that. But at least at the time of recording this, I haven't been able to find any actual gameplay on YouTube, so I decided to upload some myself. I'm not sure this will develop into any kind of full playthrough, so at least this video will rather be my sort of introduction to the game, a kind of mini review, mini tutorial. I'll basically just be walking you through how the game works, the different parts of it, and some things that I like or don't like about it, so that if you've never heard of the game before, then you might be able to form an opinion about it. Or, on the other hand, if you are an old player like me, then, extra special welcome to you, and I really hope that you will enjoy this journey back to the last half of the 1990s. And I did promise some gameplay, so let's begin a new game, shall we? We're going to play the full game. Adventures only is for, well, most of these things are for just if you want to play just parts of the game. Historical background is sort of introduction to the world and stuff, which is interesting in its own right, but it's not playable basically. So, full game. There are 3 levels of detail: basic, advanced, and expert. And basically, what basic and advanced games are stripped down versions of the expert games, where you've they've removed a number of the things that you can do, so that you're supposed to be able to pick up some parts of the game now and then. You can pick up and learn other parts later. They've gone to great lengths with this game to try and make it easy to learn, because there is a lot of stuff here. And there's also a pretty nice in-game tutorial, but I know what I'm doing, and I don't really want to limit myself to just the options you have in basic or an advanced game, so I'm definitely going with an expert game. Right, so the first thing I've got to do is pick a realm to play. And you can see the lands here with names on them are the realms that you can actually pick as a player. So, and the lands that don't have a name on them are lands that will be sort of NPC realms that are controlled by the computer. The nastiest of those by far is this realm, the Gorgon's Crown, and these 2 lands just next to that are sort of the vassals, just the puppets of that Gorgon. So for the purposes of this playthrough, I'm going to not pick that realm, but this realm. An elven realm, just on the border of these badass evil bastards. Basically, well, because I like playing close to them. It makes it a bit challenging, but mainly because this is the regent I want to choose. I mean, for each realm there are 2 regents you can choose. Generally, the smart thing to do is go with the regent with the strongest bloodline, because that means you will get more regency each turn, and regency is one of 2 very important resources that you have to manage in Birthright, the other one being gold, so that's a bit more logical, I guess. But this regent, in addition to having also relatively decent bloodline, I mean, it's not as strong as like this regent, for example. Not the strongest one you can pick in the normal game, I think. But this guy, I mean, he's also a wizard, albeit a fighter wizard, but he doesn't quite have the perfect combination of spells that this elven queen has, Izali. Because what I want is, for this little introduction video, I want to be able to show you sort of the parts of the game, and that means I want both locate object to find the quest object and the teleport spell, because the combination of those two are, in my opinion, basically the only thing that makes the adventure part of the game playable at all, basically. So I'm going to go with that.
Majesty, as Chamberlain, my task is to inform and advise you of the political and economic state of your realm.
My liege, I am here to inform you of the military status of your realm.
I am here to share my knowledge of all magical activities, my liege.
Majesty, I am the messenger through which your agents reveal their information.
So, by now you've met my advisors. The little lag before they started talking was the CD, sort of the disc, glitching a little bit. This is an old disc. It does that sometimes when you access it. Right. So the Chamberlain can tell us about a lot of things, including the realm's strength. And I'll bring up that report.
Here is the current report of the holdings of your realm and those of your peers.
And as you can see, this shows the progress to the Iron Throne. Because the game is all about becoming... well, that's not actually true, but the sort of theoretical goal of the game is becoming the Emperor of Anweir. In order to do that, you need to reach a certain set level of victory points. So as you can see, currently my realm, the Shieldwood, has 35, and the strongest realm in terms of victory points, the realm closest to the Iron Throne, is actually the Gorgon's Crown, the badass evil monster twisted Gorgon thingy. And even the number 2 Marquisor, that's the Gorgon's vassal, a goblin realm, so yeah. Nasty bits. I mean, a lot of things count towards your victory points. The blue here is the provinces that you own. That counts. Green is provinces of your allies, or specifically of your permissive allies, which is sort of the weakest alliance you can have. Purple is your vassals, I think. So Marquisor, for example, being the vassal of the Gorgon, means that Marquisor will give the Gorgon a lot of victory points, these purple points here. There are other things that count toward the score than just alliances and provinces. There are also specific relics, and also some specific provinces that count for more. Specifically, if I start taking the provinces of the Gorgon or some of these other nasty Ornshalen, these blood-twisted horrors that you fight against, or the sort of the evil nemesis, or nemesises, or whatever you call that, of the land of Anweir. Those provinces tend to count for a bit more than normal provinces. And the loyalty report,
I have your report of the realm's loyalty.
you can see
Majesty.
what realms are allied to each other or at war with each other. Yeah. The general tends to list recent wars and the size of the armies.
Majesty, here is an account of the strength of your armies and that of your peers.
Again, the Gorgon's Crown having the biggest army on turn 1. And the Mage tells us about adventure news, so we can see what sort of adventures might be
The
available.
portents reveal opportunity for great adventures, my regent.
Right, the Temple of the Grand Curate of Ruornil's celestial spell is under attack by an evil presence, and the priests implore you to journey to Brahim and rid them of this evil as soon as you can. She also lists investitures,
My liege, I bear tidings of investitures throughout Anweir.
but there aren't obviously anyone on turn 1, because that means provinces that have changed hands, basically. And here again you list sort of big, large alliances. That's what the Spy Master lists. I prefer the loyalty report. It's a bit more
I have the
complicated.
report of the realm's loyalty.
But here you got
Majesty.
you got everything. Here you just have the biggest
Your
alliances.
informants send intelligence pertaining to the realm's alliances, my liege.
So, that's the state of things on turn 1. And now you see we've entered the Anweir map again, and now all the realms actually have names. So the Gorgon right here, the Gorgon's Crown. And And these shields are armies. So if I zoom in on the Gorgon's crown, you can see here you have the Gorgon himself, the nasties, and there's some more armies there and there, and so on. Whereas my lands are down here. That's the shield wood. And this is my
Yes,
region.
Regent?
It's funny how, I mean, all the armies say stuff like, yes, Regent, even the Regent army.
Yes, Regent?
I mean, that makes sense, you're an elven archer, but,
Yes, Regent?
you are the Regent. Oh well. Anyway, here you have the overview again. Next thing to do is set tax levels. Tax levels here, and you can set those to light, normal, or severe. And it seems I can tax my population a bit more harshly without the loyalty changing. So I want to do that to get a bit more gold. Squeeze them, bleed them dry. Oh, seriously, you need a lot of gold, especially early on, to make investments to get your gold running. What you have up here is your regency, which represents sort of your political influence, your the amount of respect that people have for your sort of claim to the throne, if you want. But this is specifically, this pertains to the sort of mystical link that these regions have to the land. And their bloodline is sort of something that affects them on a very profound level. So my current bloodline strength is 42, my current domain power is 79, and that means the lower of these two numbers is what counts. So in order to get more regency per turn, I would have to improve my bloodline strength up until it reaches 79, which is the power of my domain right now, and that's calculated based on provinces and also holdings. I'll come back to holdings in a few moments. So that's the tax levels. I don't have any occupations. Payroll lists what you're paying for, mostly armies. I could go back and do the report. I could do... yeah, this shows the expenses that I have. I'm happy with that. It's time to collect the taxes. You can see these are sort of projected numbers, these grey numbers. They project I'm going to be collecting about 27 in taxes, and then paying 8, and then there's general maintenance of 6. And the payroll is mostly the armies, and the maintenance is sort of, yeah, basically expenditures to do with your holdings. But I'll get back to holdings in a few minutes. Let's just collect the taxes. Well, a little bit better than projected, and I got up from 15 to 34 gold. I could improve the size of my court here if I wanted to, and that would make me more successful in diplomacy. Generally, with our finances relatively weak at the beginning of the game, I'm going to stick with a minimal court, which is means minimal expense, but still lets me do diplomacy. If I reduced it to none, I couldn't actually send emissaries to other realms, which would be horrible, really. So I'm done with this, and when I'm done with this, I click Domain Actions.
It's your turn.
Thank you very much. And you can see the Gorgon moved some armies about around here. Because this is a turn-based strategy game. That's the kind of game I would play, basically. That was my specialty back in the day, turn-based games. And each turn, you get one action. Each turn you actually get 3 of these actions that you can use. So you can sort of do 3 things each turn. And that may seem strange. Why not just count actions? Action 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. rather than counting turn 1, action 1, 2, 3, then turn 2, action 1, 2, 3, etc. Well, the reason why it's important to keep track of the turns as well is that well, it's because of the way that this game counters one of the big temptations, basically, in turn-based games, computer turn-based games, which was to just, especially where random numbers are involved, you would just save and save your current game, and then you could reload again. But yeah, let's save actually. There's nothing wrong with that. And call it Shieldwood 2. And I can save. As you can see, the game is saved from the beginning of the turn. Subsequent actions are not saved. So it's not until I've done my 3 actions and gone on to turn 2 that I can actually save again. That works perfectly well for the domain game, the strategy. There are some horrible consequences of it as well, however, but I'll get to that in a moment. So, the next thing to take a look at is, well, what are we going to do in these turns? And you've got all these actions on the left here, these menus. You could go on an adventure, agitate, build a road, contest something, declare a war. We're not going to do that yet. Create holdings, send diplomats, do espionage, loads of things. Especially since my
Forbidding, my liege?
thank you. Since my regent is a wizard, I can do stuff like cast major realm spells that affect the land, or forge league lines between the magical sources that I have. Okay. So, well, so far what we've covered Regency. First of all, we covered the lands here, and the Gorgon is the big nasty problem here. You can see the Gorgon's armies, the red and black armies, are all over Marquesar, because that's one of his allies, or specifically it's one of his vassals even, so he can do what he wants in there. There's some other real baddies as well. There's Rove and Manslayer over here. And sorry, there's CD glitching again, but
What? Another mortal who hungers so eagerly for death?
right. He's not that much of a problem to me because Rove Manslayer is a very old, very human-hating elf. But since my realm was also an elf, that's okay. He doesn't hate us that much anyway. And here we have the spider.
I will destroy you, and your power will be mine.
Another of these monsters who have been warped by the power of their evil bloodline. There's some other really nasty realms as well, like the Five Peaks, which is sort of a goblin realm. Thorazor is also a goblin realm. Yeah. But, yeah, so that's the map. Then I've covered Regency, which is one of the resources you need to manage, and Treasury, which is the gold, which you also need to manage very carefully, obviously. Now, the next thing I want to look at, actually, is not all these actions just yet, but your holdings, to get an idea of your realm. Your realm is a lot more than just your provinces. It's also all the stuff within those provinces. You can see the Shieldwood has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 provinces. I just realised they all have this supposedly elven names. Basically,
My liege?
they look like sort of Welsh or something. I think I'll have trouble pronouncing them, but you just have to forgive me for that. But anyway, there are 9 provinces, but there's a lot of stuff in those provinces. There are holdings in the provinces. The first thing I want to do, the first thing I always do when I start playing, though, is I click here on Fighting Units and Holdings, and I click here on Showing all the units and holdings. Because otherwise I get only the units and holdings belonging to the actual realms. But there are some holdings that are not, or at least not yet, belong to any specific realm. They're sort of independent holdings. So I want to show those as well. And then you have the different types of holdings. You have law holdings. So you can click Display Law Holdings, and you see all the law holdings. Okay, so see those popping up? You can hide them again and click Guild Holdings, and you'll see that the Guild Holdings, obviously you can have both active as well. Now, these different holdings are what actually leaves a lot of room for role-playing within this sort of turn-based strategy game. This is all adapted from the Birthright board game, where you would have turns, you would have these holdings and so on in the different provinces. And you can, to a certain extent, roleplay, because the thing is, law holdings, for example, law holdings are more important, at least, to fighter-type characters. They're important to everyone because having more law holdings in your own realm will allow you to tax your population more heavily. That's why I was able to tax my population severely, if you remember that. I could not have done that if I didn't have all these law holdings in my realm. Specifically, you have to have... yeah. I'll explain more about that in a minute, I think. You may wonder what these numbers are. It says, you know, Khaloon or something like that. That's the name of the province. This is 2/6. Okay, these are like the levels of the province. So each province actually has 2 different levels, representing sort of the potential of the province. And the first number represents the civilization level of the province. So basically this province, Khaloon, has a civilization level of 2. That means it's sort of relatively sparsely populated, probably. Compared with, for example, this province, Philalian, which is actually my capital province. You might be able to see that because there's a huge big castle here as well. And that's got the civilization level of 6, which means it's about 3 times as populous, I guess, or at least, you know, much more civilized, I guess. The other number, the one after the dash here, sorry, the slash thingy, this number, which is for Khaloon, is 6. That represents not the civilization, but the magic power of this, or the magic potential of this province. So you can see Khaloon is magically very powerful, and whereas Philalian is slightly weaker magically. It's got 5 compared to 6. That's actually still very, very good for a province this civilized, and that's because I'm playing an elven realm here. If you look at the human realms, most of these realms are human. Let's take a look at... oh yeah, let's take a look at Ironway down here, for example. As you can see, you have a province here called West March, which has a civilization level 1, almost no people, but a magic level 6. So lots of raw magical potential in there. And then just next to that you have a very civilized province called Halriad. And maybe you can't read that, so we'll look at this one. Donal. Donal instead, that's got a civilization of 5, so pretty civilized. Fair amounts of people there, but not very magically powerful at all. 0, in fact, in magical power. So you can draw very little magical power from here, but there's a lot of people, so a lot of civilization down there. That's more the normal thing, actually. Once your civilization level goes up, generally your magic level goes down in a province, but that doesn't quite apply to elven realms, so that's why I've got numbers like 6 for civilization, still 5 for magic, and that's one of the cool things about being an elf, I guess. Now, back to the holdings. The point is, when you have a civilization level of 2, for example, you can have law holdings of level 1 or level 2. And you can't go higher than that because that is the level of your province. Get it? And that's the same with guild holdings and with temple holdings as well. Obviously both law, which sort of represents the laws in your land, and basically the police forces in your province. That depends on how many people are there, right? To police it and to be policed, I guess. Same with guilds. You can see I don't actually have any guilds. Yet, anyway. The Gorgon does, though. There's lots of guilds in his lands. And that, too, is dependent on the number of people in the province. I mean, guilds, well, guild holdings represent sort of trade, basically, in the province. Trade holdings, manufacture, etc., etc. Sort of industry, maybe, to a certain extent. Now the thing is that guild holdings are extra important to thief characters, okay? Because thief characters will get regency from these guild holdings. Now, any regent will also get money from guild holdings. Guilds are really the money production holding in the game. It's what gives you money, but it's not the only thing that gives you money. So any regent needs money to maintain an army, basically, and that means guilds are a good thing. But they're actually especially important to thieves, because thieves get regency out of them. Or to be more specific, what happens is that do you remember the domain power of my realm, which was 79? That's calculated out of the provinces, but also your holdings. And if you're a thief, then this domain power is calculated from guild holdings. For a regent like this one,
Your Majesty?
a wizard, she doesn't get any domain power out of guild holdings at all. She just gets gold, basically. And with law holdings, like I said, you get domain power out of law holdings if you're a fighter. So, if you're a fighter, you might want to focus on this. So basically, focusing on these different types of holdings allows for a lot of roleplay, really. You don't have to do that, obviously, but you can roleplay in that way. So as a wizard, you might want to focus perhaps on source holdings. That's magical sources. And you can see I've got a lot of these things. CD glitch again. It's a source level 6, magical source level 6. They give a lot of magical power, and they also, basically, they give me a lot of domain power, and they allow me to cast powerful realm spells within the provinces that I have sources in. Yeah. So you can, one of the really cool things about this game that you can play it in a number of different ways. Then you could focus on sources and try to cast a lot of spells, play it like that. If you're if you want money, you could focus on your guilds. And if you're a fighter, you might want to focus on your low holdings. These things overlap to a certain extent. If you're a fighter, you still probably want a big army, and even a wizard would definitely want a big army, and that means gold is important anyway, and you get gold out of guilds. You also get a bit gold out of law holdings, since that means you can squeeze your population harder for taxes. And in fact, so I mean, you can roleplay, or you could power play. You have both those options. And as for the Shieldwood, right here, with the Gorgon just north, the power play option would, to a certain extent, be actually to focus on, go rather out of character and focus on temples. There are no temples again in the Shieldwood, as you can see. There are no temples in this other Elven realm either, because basically the idea here is that if you look at all the other realms, there are loads of temples, but not in the Elven realms. So the idea is that elves don't really have religion as such. Religion is a human thing, so it'd be a bit out of character for my queen to focus on that, being an elf. But really, that would be a smart thing to focus on to a very large extent, because what's going to happen here is this Gorgon is going to summon vast numbers of undead armies.
That's why his blood. Another foolish mortal, hungry for death.
You gotta love his voice. He really sounds like a, a chain smoker gone really, really bad. That's the one.
Another little plaything to send to oblivion.
Right. Okay. What was I saying? I got distracted by the Gorgon. Yeah, I was talking about... what was I talking about? Sorry, I'm just... Well, if you watched any of my earlier... any of my Let's Plays, you'll know that I'm just not that coherent. Anyway, yeah, I was saying that this Gorgon is probably gonna summon an awful lot of undead troops very soon. And temples are interesting in that respect, because not only do priests make a very useful type of occupation, I guess, if you're facing a lot of undead, because they can turn the undead. And that's maybe the most important thing. You need priests basically to be able to destroy these undead beings that the Gorgon is going to summon a lot of. And on the other hand, temples also provide gold. So, in fact, both guilds and temples provide gold. Guilds can provide more gold because you can use them to set up trade routes. You can't do that with temples. But temples also generate gold in your taxes. So, focusing on temples would give you both some priests to combat these horrible skeletons and undead troops that the Gorgon tends to employ, and at the same time give me money to strengthen my army. Yeah, so you can play like that. Generally, I tend to have all the holdings visible, because that just lets me see everything that's going on. Don't know, maybe that's a bit much information for you all at once, so maybe I'll turn them off for now and focus on temples. Yeah, I guess now that we've looked at these holdings, we should take a bit more of a look at how this works. The Gorgon is not actually the only one capable of summoning these horrible undead troops. I think my wizard...
Your Majesty?
Yep, I think she knows how as well. So let's just do that to show you how that works. Here I have the button for realm spells. If I click that, I have to choose what realm to cast a spell in this case, Shieldwood. Because that's it's the only thing I can choose, because that's the only realm I have any sources. And I'm going to choose the province of Vilalion, because that's where I am. And I'm going to cast the spell called Summoning. And I could summon monster units, I could summon Goblin Infantry, Gnoll Marauders. I think that's a bit... I think these are a bit buggy. But anyway, Gnolls and Goblins aren't that good. What I want is Skeletons, the undead. Because Skeletons really are probably the most powerful unit in this game. Of regular army units anyway. Possibly, you know... archers are almost as good, but skeletons are... No, I think skeletons are better actually, so let's summon myself a skeleton army. That's actually going to use up one of my actions. You can see troops are on the march.
It's your turn.
You see armies moving around on the map, because every other realm obviously did their action now. And now it's my turn again. Action 2. So what do we do on action 2? Well, perhaps you'd like to know how you can manipulate all these holdings. For example, the sources. One thing that I love to do is to mess with the Gorgon a bit. I'm going to mess with one of his allies. What I'm going to try to do is create a new holding inside the Shattered Hills, this province, which is very central in Markazor, this realm of the Gorgon. In fact, it's so central that any travel that goes through Markazor needs to go through that province. So having some power there may enable me to create some headaches for Markazor. So I'm going to do that actually. That will not make Markazor, or for that matter, the Gorgon happy with me, but hopefully it'll make Markazor... Hopefully the Gorgon won't go completely crazy right away. And I'll try to create a holding in the Shattered Hills. A source holding. And... yeah, magical source holding. And you can see now, success 14. That means I have on the D20 I have to roll 14. Maybe this is clearer to you if I go in and edit the options a bit. I mean, if you've played Dungeons and Dragons, you know exactly what this is all about. If you haven't, maybe it's easier to go with simple descriptions. If I change it to simple and then try again, Shattered Hills, create a holding in Markazor, in the Shattered Hills. I want to make a source holding. You can see now that success 35%, which might make more sense to you if you're not very used to Dungeons and Dragons type games, I guess. So I could modify this using my Regency resource to get a higher chance of success. Let's do that. Let's let's spend the 13 Regency it takes to get a 100% success chance, and we'll see what happens. I'll roll the dice.
Succeeded.
And yeah, I succeeded. That may not come as a shock to you, considering I now had a 100% chance of success. But the thing is, Markazor, that other realm, could have decided to use Regency against me to reduce my success chance. He didn't. I found, for some reason, that very often showing this sort of determination of using enough Regency, spending enough Regency to get you up to 100% tends to dissuade them from bidding a lot of Regency against you, actually. And you know you won't be wasting gold and Regency on a dice roll that maybe wouldn't work out. So, with that. And yeah, you've seen, right, Aluvicreel of Corinth, that's one of the regions, is gain an experience level. You gain levels from doing stuff in this game, which is cool. Is get an experience level. This would not actually happen in the... this will not actually happen in the original game. I'm playing with a patch 1.2, and then I've got patch 1.3, I think, as well. And that's in those patches, this starts to work, this business of actually earning experience from doing things. Like, I think I should have earned a little experience now from creating that source holding. Yeah. Well, anyway, you see my current experience is, what, 1,128,500. I think I started with 125,000, so I think I've increased a bit. Okay, now, of these, I mean, each turn you get 3 actions, right? You have a spare action, though, and that's your lieutenant action. That basically means you can ask your lieutenant. In this case, that's going to be Cohen Risdiorden, because he's the only lieutenant I have right now. You can ask that person to do something as well every turn. So I'm going to do that, just to make sure I can do as much as possible every turn. Oh, sorry, wrong button. That's hiring a new lieutenant. This is the lieutenant action. And Cohen Risdiorden, he's a ranger. So, I mean, a lot of these actions have darkened out, and there's a red line across, and that means the lieutenant can't do them. So let's see, what is it he can do? He can create holdings as well. Can rule holdings, create trade routes. Can we create any trade routes right now? No. We don't have any guilds, so in that case we should make a guild. And let's make one in our own realm in the capital of Philalian. Make a guild. And you see the success rate here cannot be modified by Regency because this lieutenant does not have access to our regent's regency. But since we're doing this in our own territory, he's got a fairly decent chance of getting it done as well. So let's just roll the dice and see if we can manage that.
Succeeded.
He made a guild, and you can see now there's a very small level 2 guild right there. So we now have a level 0 source in there and a level 0 guild in there. The thing about level 0 holdings, especially in enemy realms, is that they are very susceptible to being contested by other realms, and that means they'll disappear instantly. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do to avoid that is to level it up. But that doesn't... Of course, all the source here is controlled by the Gorgon. So we can't actually level it, because that means... Let's see, brush 5. But this is Shattered Hills, and the fact that it's only got magic level 1, and there's already source 1, source level 1, that means there isn't room for more. So I can't actually level that up. Yet, anyway. What we could do is try to contest away the Gorgon's own source in there. That's going to make him very unhappy and is a bit dangerous. I think what we're going to do instead is we're simply going to forge a ley line from Anidur, where we have a level 6 source, and to the Shattered Hills. Because when we forge a ley line, that means we get to cast more powerful spells. I mean, I could try to cast a spell in Shattered Hills now, but I can't cast anything because the source is on level 0, and you can see summoning or warding, for example, requires a source level 3. The way around that is either to work on the sources and slowly rule them up. That's what you can do with any holding, but I think the fast way to do it, which we'll do, is we'll simply forge a ley line from Anadur, where we already have a level 6 source, and to the Shattered Hills. Let's see.
Waiting for an opponent.
And now you can see the enemy actually used regencies to stop that from happening. Reduced our success chances to 65%. I'm going to spend the little regency that it costs, 8 regency, to get it back to 100.
Succeeded.
Succeeded. So now I have a ley line, which means I can now cast spells in the Shattered Hills at a source level of 6. So that's it for the first turn, and that means I can wait for the glitchy disc, and now it's turn 2, and I can actually save again. I'm going to save this as Shieldwood 2 again. So that's it for the very first turn of this game. I might continue with a bit more stuff in a later video. Feel free to post any comments that you might have, suggestions. I mean, whether you'd like me to develop this into a full-scale Let's Play or not. Perhaps you'd like me
It's
to
your turn.
show you something in specific. I do know there are several things we haven't shown you. I have showed you the holdings system. I've showed you a few of the realm actions. I've showed you a number of the realms. We need to look at we really ought to look at a couple more actions to give you an idea what the game is all about, like diplomacy, which is very important. And what you should probably take a brief look at least at adventuring and at war in this game as well, how that stuff works, battles. But apart from that, there's a lot of freedom to do whatever we want, so feel free to post suggestions. This is not going to be like a completely interactive game in any way. It's a strategy game, not a role-playing game, so it's not going to be a rip-off of Variax's interactive game in any way at all. But if you have ideas on what you'd like to see with this, whether you're sick and tired of it, or whether you would like me to continue playing this, or maybe you'd like me to play another realm, maybe you'd like me to perhaps you have ideas on how you'd like me to see me play. Should I roleplay? Should I power play? Should I try and become emperor or empress as soon as possible? You know, if you're interested, or if you wondered about any of this stuff, if you're interested, post suggestions, and I'll see what I can do about it. Okay, so that's it for now. See you later.